Hello, Wednesday evening. Now this is the Spitfire that I should have been comparing with the Edward, at least as far as they're both Mark 5B. But it's very, 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 very similar in molding to the Mark 1 which I used, so there's no particular difference there. So I had a look at one other thing which I'll show you right now, but I just want to remember when I said that's enough of Spitfires? Well, obviously it wasn't, because I've got a couple more things to show you. Now this sort of goes to, we're using the Spitfire as a topic, but really what we're doing is looking at model technology in a sense. I would say if you look at these two, the curvature line of the fillet which one would easily get off side view drawings should be as accurate as each other. Oddly though, actually I should rather put the other side there so that you can actually see the difference right close up. Okay, now the difference in fillet is extremely obvious. So this side is Edward, which is a lot tighter in. It's a lot tighter in, whereas Tamiya I don't know what the word is. I'm trying to think of, it sort of curves in and runs flush a lot later. That's very glaring. Now I looked quickly online at the 2018 Spitfire Mark 1, which you mentioned, which I don't have. But I realized we have talked about that at some stage in the past, because I remember one of you mentioned the fact that, strangely, they've separated a large section here which you then need to glue in. But I wasn't able to actually gather a measure for that, so I can't really speak about that, and I can't really speak about the flow in the flushness of the fillet join to the fuselage as opposed to this earlier 1993 kit. So this 1993 kit is a beautiful Spitfire model, and this is the sort of thing that you would hardly notice unless you actually referenced. But now that we're looking at it, and specifically from the point of view, the whole judgment is to determine whether Edward was extremely accurate in all respects. Now you'll be glad to know that after I've looked in this book, and this is not, it's nice, but it's not the be-all and end-all of Spitfire. Paul Monforton has got a very comprehensive breakdown, but it's not, well, it's available in book form. I don't have the book form one of that. But anyway, I'm not going to page through this all, but there's tons of stuff in here. But most notably, the odd picture where you can try, and you can look this stuff up online as well. You're not going to be able to see this that clearly there, but on this picture the way that fillet joins in to the fuselage at this angle, and that's the correct angle, is completely flush. It doesn't join with a little bit of a step. There was another one early on. You know, from these side view pictures, it's difficult to determine what the reality was. You know, it looks very nice and flush. And even from these two pictures, you know, looking at that curvature, even looking at the picture and looking at your model, you would struggle to really determine the nature of that fillet. But of course, I'm always open to people that have really studied the Spitfire to tell me whether the fillet changed in design at stages. I'm not really seeing that. What I am seeing is that depending on the angle that you look at it from, you can get a different point of view. And there's one photo I want to show you. Yes, which was this one. So on this photo, you are seeing the fillet, which is actually that line. It's actually that line there. You are seeing the fillet join. This is near the, closer to the rear section. But what you can see is the absolute smoothness of that. Now that does not carry through all the way to the front of the fillet. There is a little bit of a change. But the point is, it is an extremely smooth transition. So researching something like that is probably better done with the absolute massive photos that you can get online, and of course the blueprints to determine the exact shape. It's good enough at this stage to know that the way in which the Eduard one has been done is far more correct. Oh, by the way, yes, sorry, I have to point something out. Let's just put this together again. Almost forgot, and that does make a difference in your perception. Okay, that line there on the Eduard is not the actual final trailing edge of the fillet. There is a little bit more because it's into the wing. And I was looking at that last night after I did the video. Oddly, I guess for the purposes of having a more robust trailing edge, they've got this little lip here, which means that where that touches the fuselage, or more accurately the fillet, that see if I can hold this in position in such a way that you can actually see this. That little piece there, yeah, you see it there? So that little piece does change the nature of that by a little, but not enough to remotely equal the Tamiya kit. What this also represents to a large degree is this kit is pre-scanning era. This kit is post-scanning era, which means the scanning technology for 3D modeling would possibly have been used on this. Likely have been used, which means there should be almost no inaccuracy on basic airframe, but it is slightly odd that they raised this. There's a little step in the flap. I mean, it's minimal enough, but slightly odd that it's there. Now, one of you commented that you found it strange that on both of these models, even though this is 1993, that the flaps were molded in, especially on that, on the Edward. You know, Tamiya, the Tamiya is a nice kit, but they didn't attempt to sort of have a part breakdown where you've got flap options. Would have been nice, but not doing so on this one. And you asked if there's detail on the other side. No, there isn't. And okay, those parts are the other side there, so I can't bring them over, but I don't want to spend too much time on the Edward kit. I just wanted to show that. Oh, as far as the depth, as far as that depth of this rear piece joining in, it's much of a muchness because it's sort of part of the fuselage, so it's not incorrect for it to be one or the other. It's a join line which would occur and is not really present on the actual aircraft. Correct me if I'm wrong. But there was something I wanted to say about that. What was the other point? No, that's just slipped me now. So I mean, this little oddity of the flap flushness, because it's on the lower surface, I don't think it's going to change my opinion much. But thinking about what I said yesterday in the video, I am more convinced now that to adequately have a model built where you preserve what they've offered you, you have to spray very thinly, and I think I'm sort of getting a plan in my head of how to bring this visual content out, which would almost disappear with camouflage. You know, just to be able to appreciate it. I don't need to do it in a camouflage scheme because I've got other kits that can be in the camouflage scheme. Right, now I think we're almost at the end of Spitfires. When we spoke many months ago about some of the models that I was showing you, I can't remember if one of you mentioned the date of a particular model that I'm about to show you, but I've just realized it's the oldest molding that I have. In a sense, it was remolded in the 80s. So the actual plastic that I'm about to show you is not from 1949, but this kit is from 1949, this kit design. So it's been remolded a couple of times. This particular one is actually 90. And so that I didn't realize I had something that old, or I've just forgotten my memory. So this Republic CB is a 1949 model kit. Now it was originally in white plastic with windows cut out. It was then remolded at a stage in white with flush windows like this, and this molding is in clear plastic in an attempt to now at least have windows again. I'm not sure why they didn't just retain the original where the windows were open in the model. So I would like to do this, you know, sort of fitting service to such an absolutely old model. I saw one for sale, the white plastic one, but not with the windows cut out, which makes it the Pegasus 1985 moldings, $40. But I don't really need two. And then I sit with the problem of no windows anyway. Before I get onto the Hurricane, there was something else, but it always eludes me. I really should make notes. Okay, let's look at this. Now, this is not the easiest to hold up here. Let's see what we can do. These Airfix models I know quite well because a friend of mine had all of them in the 80s. From the early 80s, all of them. I only built the Spitfire, and then in the 90s the Mustang. I had the Hurricane once, didn't build it, but I know it fairly well. Now, the models that I've seen built to that standard that we were at that stage, they're not bad, but they don't give it the justice that I think one can do. I mean, it's interesting. It's got it's going to show. All you're going to see is a bit of matte there. It's got the canvas surface fabric, I should say, even though in reality the fabric of the rear fuselage would not have been this level of roughness. It would have been actually a lot smoother. But that gives a little bit of character on this model. There are blemishes which one will live with. There are things that you can fix. But I want to use a paint technique that really looks good on this model. Not really sure about the putting the little motor in is sort of one of those things that's mildly pointless, except for the fact that it's a legacy thing that one could do. I have the motor. I don't have a motor in anything else. Well, okay, it might as well go into here, but it's not like you're actually going to sit and switch it on and switch it off. Once you've built it in, once you've tested it, once you finish your model, that's it. Hardly ever gets used again. But I'll do it, simply because I don't have one. What can I say about this fuselage? It's got the nice detail. It's got rivets. It's got the slightly lower quality of finish that one expects, but not bad all round. One does. There's minor things that's very easy to glue. There's the fact that these things may not be lining up perfectly, and they may need a bit of strengthening. There's essentially nothing on the inside there, but that's because that's the cockpit still to come. Wing. Looks to me to not have the dihedral that is required, which means this part has probably cooled in such a way that it's lost some of its dihedral. So what we would hope is that once glued, once you have your wing ready, and you'd need to do a bit of test fitting. Once you've got that ready, you measure, you test fit this against the fuselage, and you'll probably find that it needs to go to a certain point to actually touch the fuselage. And the same thing that I've said in many videos, once the fuselage is together, let me hold this like this, you would have to test fit and decide. Now in this case we've got two variables, not just the one, because the fuselage can be spread slightly by means of sprue spreaders, and the wing is bendable to get to the right thing. So one can think of a method by which you then are attempting to get the glue join there, and then it settles at whatever dihedral, and automatically pulls the fuselage a little bit if it needs to. Slight danger there is that the lower wing actually has a little bit more force, and you still don't end up with, so let's say you've glued it up there, the lower wing pulls it and spreads your fuselage a little bit more than it necessarily should. Questionable. Yeah, no, probably could, because you don't have a reference point. So because I'm feeling this force now, and there's almost no force to actually spread that fuselage. So I think one needs to be a little bit careful and do a measure, probably get a jig. Underside detail. Now on a model like this, and as I'm looking at this rivet detail, I may do a little bit of sanding, but it'll hardly be I'm talking about that method of where you've got the base coat and even partial final coats, and then do a light sanding to bring through all of that rivet detail. I probably would, because it does feel like it's not very high, but it's high enough to achieve that. But there's a lot of other stuff on the wing that you don't want to go sanding over. And I won't want to be doing any sanding on the textured surface, because you will inevitably create areas of lesser fabric effect, and then you're going to have a more fabric to less fabric look, almost a matte to satin to even semi-gloss if you sanded the joint too much. So you really need to try and get a nice fit from the beginning. These movable ailerons that were on the 1/24th kits, there's no real reason to actually have them move. In fact, none of the moving surfaces need to be moving. That was nice as a kid. How many moving things has your model got? That's interesting to build, but at this level, there's no reason. We're not going to sit and move anything. You just want them in whatever position this is. So probably elevators in the down position, drooped, natural position that they would droop at without the control lock on. I don't want to open those panels and have any view of the guns. I'd rather just have the Hurricane sort of ready for takeoff. One of you mentioned having that little two-wheeled, can't remember what that was. It called? No, it wasn't. I can't remember. Tell me in the comments what it was called. You said maybe scratch build one of those. There may be sink marks. Let's just get this out of here, and then we'll go through a little bit of the stuff. Actually managed to get this out. So what that means is that the attachment of ailerons, elevators and rudder can be modified from original, so we don't need those. We don't necessarily need the pivot pins. All we want is a method by which they can be attached. Now these connection points were done with those sort of rings which held them in position. So probably want to open those so that they can slot in be glued in position, but you'd probably want to paint them separately from your main wing. Being canvas covered, being fabric covered, you would have a slight different effect and not just spray them in the same color. So a little bit of modification. We have some of the engine mounting parts, the little electric motor mounting parts. Oh, so on my Spitfire, which ended up being rather annoying as well, the Spitfire that I built long ago, it's all very nice to build it with so many removable things, but you've got your engine panels which kept on falling off. So with the electric motor in position, I would rather have everything closed and glued up, especially since I'm going to be taking the engine, the actual scale engine, as a separate model. There's not a whole lot on these panels. There's a little bit of rivet line. There's absolutely minimal on the top. Oh, does this no. Okay, not sure what's some of these. Oh, is that intakes. So these must be intake parts. Got an outlet, what do you call it, a vent, flap. Engine model, I can separate everything, and I'll have to think about a nice way to actually display this engine, because it is best displayed then close to the main Hurricane without it necessarily being in a hanger setting. So almost, okay, we've got the exhausts on here, but a lot of what is on this sprue will then not be built into the main kit. The exhausts, and this is an issue I had with another model that I did. You sort of want the exhausts to be on the engine model, but they also need to be on the aircraft model. You can remold, but I'm not exactly sure what I'll do in this case. They obviously need to be on the main aircraft, because you don't want to have a Hurricane without its exhausts on. It's slightly acceptable to have the engine without the exhausts on, but again, you sort of do want them on. The engine frame is not really something that you would have on a separate display of the engine. It's not like it's going to be in the engine frame, which belongs in the aircraft, but outside the aircraft. So those parts a little bit questionable. Undercarriage, as I say, will be down. Oh, I wonder if they supplied two. Would they have supplied two? We'll have a look now on the instructions and see if they supplied two exhaust types. So undercarriage doors, undercarriage bays, all of this detail. So there'll be more detail in the undercarriage bay than pretty much anything else. Undercarriage bay and undercarriage legs, and those look pretty nice. We've got the rims, which can be sprayed separately and weathered separately, so that's nice. Guns, I'm not sure if one even needs to actually include them. How much would, I'll just have a look at what you might see if they're not actually included. So if you leave out the things that we can leave out for the initial model, you know, it's big, but it's not terrible. Although I think one would want to spend a bit of time on that undercarriage bay. Out of proportion. Do quite a nice detailed job of that. Cockpit. I'll try and not let this video run too long. Your pilot figure, yes, I probably would include it. I did on my original and they're good enough. So actually I would. It would almost be nice to have him sitting on a chair, but it's a very... one might be able to. Thoughts? You know, airfield setting, sitting on the chair rather than have him actually in the aircraft. Okay, very quickly, let's just have a look at what options we have here. So we've got the motor, which we will include in that method. There does not appear to be an option with exhausts. Oh, sorry, some of that was cockpit frame, not engine frame that I mentioned. So how much is engine frame? Only two, only those two. Okay, no big deal. Let's leave that out. Probably want to leave that firewall out and remake something that just gives you that bit of rigidity, if it even needs it. Well, possibly does need it. Okay, so yes, a lot of that I won't do. I just don't want to have opening panels there. It's not really something that really grabs me. But all the effort that I might have put into making that look nice, I would rather put into making the undercarriage bay look above and beyond, including the scoop, radiator detail and so on. Undercarriage legs. Anyway, give me your thoughts and ideas relating to that. So I guess one of the next things that I can do is then separate out all of the engine parts and then separate out the other parts which I'm not going to be including in my build. And of course, as to where this goes, well, obviously on the ceiling, I mean, it'll first go to a couple of club meetings, stand on the table. But it would be nice to protect it against all the dust that it eventually collects while hanging on the ceiling. And I guess I need a little bit of a backup plan in case things don't go well with this. Oh, one of you said spray. Yes, very good point. So I can certainly spray some parts, roundels. I mean, letters even possibly, that would be a little bit more difficult. So really we're hoping to retain things like that, those, etc. Those. But if it came to the worst and the decals themselves didn't work out, or alternatively just plan for spraying them in the first place, because it does give you a far more characteristic finish. So we'll have to see. I think what I will need to do is cut this up, take one of these, not even use this whole one all at once, just take the one, take the little hawker, test it in water, see how it handles, check its robustness, is this likely to be brittle, and just get an idea of where we're at with the decals. Okay, 35 minutes. I think that's enough for tonight. So happy modeling and see you next time. Cheers.